أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings be upon you all. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude towards the Satya Sai International Organization for inviting me. I think it's honestly wonderful how we have such a diverse group of people here today, and it's quite refreshing to see this gathering because in this day and age where life is so fast and everything's so fast moving, talking about things regarding a spiritual topic, this can be often swept under the carpet. So I think it's really important to have these sort of gatherings so that we may learn more about each other and bridge the gaps. So today I've been asked to talk about two things. Actually, before I go into that, as the brother kindly introduced me, my name is Ali. As he said, I'm the current president of the Islamic Society at the University of Leicester. And I've just finished my first year of studies in medical physiology. So it's all sciencey and I'm managing, alhamdulillah. Now, I've been asked by the brother to talk about the inner significance of Ramadan, and I've split this up into two subsections: the spiritual significance and the physical significance, so how you can physically benefit. And then he's asked me to also just add in a little bit about how I view faith as a young adult. I'll do all that inshallah. I'll just put like a 30-second gap in between because it's a lot of information. I'll give you guys a breather. But before I get started on that, I just want to give you guys a short precursor so that what I say becomes a bit easier to understand for those of you who might not know a lot about Islam. Islam, in essence, revolves around the concept of something called Tawheed, which is the declaration of the oneness of God. So we believe that God is one, He is almighty, He is indivisible, He is all-knowing, He is the most merciful, He is the most gracious. There is nothing that compares to Him, and He is outside of time, space, and matter. We believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is His messenger, and the Quran was revealed through him. And thereby we believe that the Quran is the exact dot-to-dot words of God, which is why you'll see Muslims very firm in their faith, like whenever we talk about Islam. So what is Ramadan all about? Right off the bat, the first thing that anyone will tell you about Ramadan is that it is a month in which we fast. It's a month, it's 29 to 30 days, depending on the moon, and we fast not the whole day. That would kill us if we did it for a month. It's from sunrise, approximately sunrise, until sunset. So depending on the different variations in the school of thoughts, it can range between 18 hours and 20 hours as of now. Obviously, like when Ramadan's in the winter times, it's a bit shorter. So obviously there's different variations of fast. I used to have a very close Hindu friend. She was a neighbor, and like her fast was, she couldn't eat anything, but she could drink anything, right? And obviously in different cultures, different religions, fasting has been present for a long time, even before Islam was around. Our fast is very simple: no food, no drink. Simple as. There's other things which might break the fast, but primarily it's no food or no drink. But Ramadan is a lot more than just abstaining from food and drink. We abstain from bad behavior, such as slandering, backchatting, and consuming things which aren't good, and other sort of sins. It's the time where we join in good deeds, and not just good deeds, but we make good habits out of those good deeds. Because there's no point in Ramadan if you just do good deeds and then you don't take anything away from it after Ramadan finishes. So it's a time where we do good deeds and we make good habits as well. It's a time where spiritually we renew ourselves. We bridge the gap between ourselves and God. It's a chance for us to turn over a new leaf, if you like. Because the Ramadan is a month of mercy, where God's mercy is at its highest. So we like to capitalize on that. And like I said, do good deeds and shun the bad deeds. But when explaining to non-Muslims what Ramadan's all about, something which we often overlook is the emphasis on the Quran, our holy scripture. For Muslims, this is extremely important in Ramadan. In fact, Ramadan, the other name for Ramadan is the month of the Quran. To expand on how important it is for us to recite Quran and memorize it and understand it, there is, I'll elaborate on this. There are 5 pillars in Islam. Fasting is the third pillar, so it is the third pillar of Islam. in the Quran, you'd expect that Ramadan is mentioned a lot because, like I said, it's the third pillar of Islam, fasting. However, by name, Ramadan is only mentioned once in the whole Quran, which I found quite surprising. But in the verse, it's a long verse. I'll recite the first part to you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, the month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed to mankind as rules and as a guidance for mankind. Later on in this surah, in this verse, in this ayah, later on in this verse, God talks about fasting with Ramadan. But imagine that Ramadan, the only place it's mentioned in the Quran, the first thing God associates with Ramadan is the Quran, and the fasting comes later, right? And that's reflected in our practices as well. So on the first day of Ramadan, before the fast, we do a long unit of prayer where we recite the Quran called Taraweeh, and this comes before the fast, okay? But why do Muslims fast? What's the reason behind this? There is God directly addresses this in chapter number 2, verse 183. God says that, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, so that you may become a type of person. In the Quran it says al-muttaqun. The type of people are called al-muttaqun. The singular version of that is muttaqi. So what is muttaqi? What does it mean to be a muttaqi? A muttaqi is someone who is God conscious and God aware in their actions. We have an Arabic word for this called taqwa. I'm sure a lot of you might have heard this word taqwa. So basically the primary reason why we fast is so that we may attain taqwa or some of taqwa. Now what is taqwa? Like I said, it's to be God conscious or God aware. Let me give you an example. It's common knowledge that for Muslim, we are not allowed to consume alcohol. It's impermissible for us to consume alcohol. If I'm a Muslim and I'm inclined to alcohol and I'm reaching for the bottle, but then I restrain myself out of my fear for God or the fact that I want to please God, I don't want to displease God, that is an act of taqwa. Okay? So the word taqwa itself, it comes from the root word waqaya in Arabic, which means to protect or to guard or to shield oneself. And in what context do I mean this? When it comes to bad deeds, protecting yourself from bad deeds, identifying the paths to those bad deeds, those sins, and then shutting yourself off from those paths, so you don't enter into sin. And joining in good deeds, being in good gatherings for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are acts of taqwa. And it doesn't just end there, there's a lot more to it. There's a famous narration by, there were two companions of the Prophet, Umar radiallahu anh, and Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anh. And Umar asks Ubay ibn Ka'b, what is taqwa? What is taqwa? And Ubay ibn Ka'b replied, have you ever walked through a thorny pathway? So a pathway with like thorny bushes and whatnot. Umar says, yes, I have. Ubay ibn Ka'b then replied to that. He asked, what did you do when you crossed this path? And Umar replied, well, I rolled down my sleeves and I trod along the path carefully. And Ubay ibn Ka'b says, this is taqwa. Alright? If we look into the lesson behind this narration, it's simply what you do in real life as well. Like I said, you identify the threats for how you could end up in sin, and you just shut those out. You tread along through life very carefully and precautiously, so that we don't end up sinning. But what is the connection between fasting and taqwa? How does fasting enable us to have taqwa? It's very simple. When we fast, our body, there's a battle going on within our body. There is a battle going on in our body constantly. Metaphorically speaking, our stomach is begging us, feed me, feed me, feed me. Don't worry about God, just break your fast right now, I'm hungry, right? And then our tongue, once again metaphorically speaking, our tongue says, I'm thirsty, just quench me, forget about your fast, quench me with my thirst right now. But then your heart is the one that comes out on top and says no, not until Maghrib, not until sunset. That is strengthening your heart. And over time, through Ramadan, you strengthen your heart so that you don't act on impulses and you don't act on desires. And this is not something which is just bound to Islam. This can be applied to all aspects of life, not in acting on your impulses, not acting on your desires. It's a really good practice for your heart. And I like to think of it as training. Like I said, I'll go back to the alcohol example. Imagine I'm a Muslim who drinks alcohol. I've got a habit of drinking alcohol. This is quite powerful, by the way, so listen carefully. If I can fast in Ramadan, 30 days, that's Allah's way of saying that if you can fast in Ramadan, if you can abstain from what is normally permissible to you, then what is stopping you from abstaining from that which is impermissible to you normally outside of Ramadan? SubhanAllah. So if I can fast in Ramadan, if I can abstain from fundamentals, food and drink, things which are basic human necessities, if I can abstain from that for the sake of Allah, then what is stopping me from abstaining from that which is impermissible to me, like alcohol, for example? And it's not just bound to food and drink. There's a lot more that we can apply this to. Slandering. If I can abstain from back-chatting and slandering somebody in Ramadan, then why can't I do it outside of Ramadan? You know, if I can respect my parents and not be rude to them, or even say uff to them, even saying uff to your parent in Islam, it's a sin. If I cannot even say uff to my parents in Ramadan, then what's stopping me from abstaining from saying it in outside of Ramadan? So it's training. An analogy that I came across one day, it was from Ustad Noman Ali Khan. I'm sure some of you might have heard of him. He has a lot of YouTube videos. He poses the analogy of a fireman, like a fire brigade, right? Firemen, when people train firemen, you don't throw them into a real life fire, you know, with lives at stake, you know, in their training, because that's not how it works. Simply, they go through mock exercises. Firemen go through mock exercises to strengthen their skills, so that when the real situation comes, they are more than prepared to tackle the situation. In the same way, Ramadan is a training period for Muslims. It's a time where, like I said, we strengthen our heart, and then when we practice on ourselves, we practice the whole idea of not acting on your impulses and desires. Then, when it comes to the end of Ramadan, then we're outside this whole month of spirituality. Then the real test comes, like, you know, have you learnt anything from Ramadan? What can you apply? And the month that comes after Ramadan, is called the month of Shawwal, and it is recommended in Islam to fast the first 6 days of that month. Why? For this exact reason. So that we can see, like, did we learn anything from Ramadan? And now we're outside this month of spirituality, then have we actually learned anything in Ramadan? And that's why we have those 6 days of Shawwal. There's a lot more things I could talk about on a spiritual level, but because of time, I'm going to move on, inshallah, to the physical benefits of Ramadan. I do apologize in advance if I am rushed, if I'm listing it, but there's a lot of things. I study science, so I'm quite passionate about this. Is there any doctors in the room, by the way, today? Any doctors, any scientists, lab? No? Okay, in that case, you'll have to... What do you study?
Well, I do aeronautics.
I was more human biology.
Science.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. In that case, you guys will have to take my word on it for a lot of it. I was hoping there would be a doctor in the room. But anywho, the World Health Organization, WHO, they had a study, and they stated that one of the leading causes of death worldwide, which accounts for 31.5% of the deaths, is heart disease. It's something that, you know, we might know somebody, or we might have someone in the family who's passed away because of heart disease, or struggles with some sort of chronic heart disease. It's a very common thing in today's world. You know, we're made to believe, you know, we have to have 3 square meals a day in order to survive and all that. And a cause of heart disease is inflammation. Inflammation is a huge problem. It leads to heart disease, it leads to other chronic conditions like arthritis. You know, so inflammation has a big influence on diseases. Fasting has been proven to directly reduce inflammation in all parts of your body. Fasting stimulates something called autophagy, which is basically the turnover of human cells. So any damaged cells, any defect part in, like, components in the cell, fasting helps the body, it boosts the immune system so that we can get, have a healthier cells, get rid of the damaged ones, get new ones. It keeps us healthy, basically, in all parts of the body, whether it's in the brain, whether it's in the intestines, and more. When we fast, our body uses our fat storage, right, to supply the body with energy. That's common knowledge. But when our body breaks down these fats, we get ketones, and one of these ketones, I love this particular one. One of these ketones is called beta hydroxybutyrate. I don't expect you to remember the name, it's a long name, I'm probably going to forget by tonight as well. But what this does, this blocks the immune system from the specific cells which regulate these these inflammatory processes. So things which, when your immune system attacks your own body, when you have like rheumatoid arthritis, for example, then these ketones will directly block it. So that's how it reduces inflammation. So like I said, fasting overall has been proven to reduce the inflammation, so that we have less heart disease, less arthritis, and other chronic conditions. I came across another study, and I had to double check if it was real, if it was legit. And it turns out it was. Unfortunately, most of the text is in Serbian, so I couldn't read all of it. I wish I could speak Serbian, but a lot of the main parts were in English. And the results really surprised me as well. There was an experiment done under strict medical supervision. There was 110 obese adults, or overweight to obese adults, and they were made to fast for three weeks continuously. They were made to fast 3 weeks continuously, and then the changes in the body was measured. For those of you who know your science, the research in the papers, they had a p-value of less than 0.001, which basically means that there is a significant result, so it's not due to chance. That's the bottom line. And the results, there was many results, but just to pick out, just to cherry pick a few, they had proven reduced blood pressure, a significant decrease in blood pressure, a significant decrease in the lipid content in the body. So obviously they were getting slimmer as well when you fast properly. And also there was improved glucoregulation, and here's the interesting bit, increased insulin sensitivity. Now why is this one important? This one was for me the most interesting one. Somebody who studies this kind of stuff, it was so interesting for me. Why is this? Because a lot of you will know, out of you, the people who know what type 2 diabetes is and how it works, one of the causes for type 2 diabetes is decreased sensitivity to insulin. So what this is doing, what fasting does to you, it paves the way for that type 2 diabetes to reverse. Not just reduce, but reverse. So you can potentially cure your type 2 diabetes. And that's something which is scientifically proven. Fasting is known to increase your cognitive function, increase also growth hormone secretion, which is needed for muscle development and bone development, etc. And it's also been proven to decrease aging, which I think I could definitely make use of. But there was an experiment done on mice, and with the mice, there was a group of fasting mice, and there was a group of mice who weren't made to fast. And the ones who were made to fast, they lived on average not 10% longer, not 20% longer, 83% longer, which is an incredible figure. Like, we can't even imagine just fasting itself increases, for mice at least, but we do experiments on mice for a reason, because it's not too far off the truth with human beings, so it can't be too far off the mark. There was also another experiment done on mice where it was proven that those ones that fasted had their body was blocking tumor formation and tumor development, which I find quite interesting as well. If you guys do want to read up on this, there is a chap who does a lot of research on this. His name is Professor Mark Matson, and he works at the Johns Hopkins University. He's the chief of the lab of neuroscience and works with the National Institute of Aging. He's got a lot of papers which is really interesting. So I do recommend you guys read it, because fasting is, like I said earlier, is not something which is just bound to Islam. It's across all cultures. So inshallah you can read up on that in your own time. He's proven in his studies that fasting 2 times a week can significantly decrease your chances of developing Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and it increases there's a lot of neurochemical alterations. And what's interesting about this is that when you fast, in your hip, there's a component in your brain called the hippocampus, which is one of the few places in your brain that contains stem cells. Sorry if this is getting a bit too confusing, but I'll try to keep it simple. Stem cells are basically, imagine them as baby cells. They're not quite like developed cells or specialized cells, but they have the ability to become specialized cells. So it's like your cell reserve, if you like. So the hippocampus is one of the few places in the brain that contains these stem cells. And fasting stimulates a process called, it's called neurogenesis, which is basically stimulating the use of those stem cells to make neurons, to make nerves and neuronal pathways. And it does the whole thing what I explained to you earlier, so like cell turnover and replacing the cells in your body so that your brain stays fresh and healthy. It's also been proven, fasting has been proven to increase your memory, increase your learning aptitude, and reduce, like I said, inflammation. And what's interesting as well is that it directly reduces your levels of stress as well.